7:32. That was White Snake with Here I Go Again. It's our special show. We got the 374th Airlift Wing Commander, Colonel Mark August, in here for his farewell show.
Absolutely.
And why that song? Why White Snake, Here I Go Again? Any fond memories?
Actually, they're all of command, actually. When you start thinking about the responsibilities of command and some of the tough decisions that you got to make, a lot of times you realize you're out there on your own making those decisions. But the cool part is it does bring back good memories. When I was dating my beautiful bride back in the 80s, you know, that was a lot of fun time. No mullets, no really long hair, none of that stuff that was going on. But lots of good memories from old times, and definitely a theme song for Commanders.
Miss August, is that true? No mullets? No mullets? All right, she said she wasn't having that. Hey, so, you know, and I can definitely understand why that song, because you're saying, you know, here I go again, here we go. Yep. You know, another challenge. And speaking of challenges, what are some of the biggest challenges that you faced while you're out here at Yokota Air Base? Yeah, there's three really big challenges that are out there. And the first one that jumps to mind is the one that we've been in here in the studio, and we talked an awful lot about, and that was sequestration. Definitely. That was that word that nobody knew what it meant, and it was never supposed to happen, and we weren't going to plan for it. And the next thing we know, it fell right in our lap. And when you look at what Yokota had to do during that time frame, it's pretty impressive, because we lost 47% of really our base support funding 6 months into the fiscal year, and now you're scrambling. How do I keep the base running? And you start to look at all those challenges, and then it hit flying hours. We lost 25% of our flying hours. We had crews that were walking out to an international exercise, and we had to pull them off the aircraft because we didn't have enough flying hours to get them to where they needed to be and then come back. We started worrying about the supply chain, fuel. We started worrying about everything that was going on, and we had to really go back and look at priorities and say, what combat capability do we have to protect? What can we jettison? What can we get rid of? What do we have to stop doing? But when you saw that challenge, you actually got to see some amazing things start to happen at Yokota. And a lot of it happened right here when we had a chance to talk to folks here at Eagle A-10 and really explain that when we were talking about things like turning off the heat early, 3 weeks early, when you can talk about saving 1.06 million gallons of fuel, you start talking about those types of savings, and you talk about $1.6 million in savings in utilities, and that money's coming back to us so we can pay for other things. All of a sudden you started to see the community come back around behind it. And even in things like electricity, you know, people talk about how great the base was during Operation Tomodachi. When we really scale back and say, we're supporting the local community, we're going to scale back our usage. A lot of folks don't realize that last year was the second best time ever in Yokota's history for saving energy, and that was simply because of sequestration. So we took a challenge and took it into a huge win. Obviously, the next one is what's on everybody's mind right now is foreshaping. Foreshaping, definitely. I mean, I can't go anywhere and talk to anyone without having a foreshaping discussion. Sir, what do you think? What's going on? How's this going to happen? And, you know, there's so many 3-letter and 4-letter acronyms, because we actually started with CERB, ESERB, then QFRB, then ERB. Now we're in FSB, RIF, and, of course, we just finished VSP. And if you're listening to the radio, you think that was a whole lot of things, but I'll tell you what, every airman out there knows exactly what those things mean and what it means to their lives, their families, their careers, their profession. And how do you tell folks that it's going to be okay? This is the first time in my 21 years of experience that I've seen the entire Air Force thinking at the same time, what happens after I leave the Air Force? And that's not a comfortable place to be as a leader and as a commander. So once again, we took on a huge leadership challenge. We spent a lot of time, but what I saw once again, as I think for the first time in some people's careers, they got honest, heart-to-heart, and probably some really tough feedback. And what I've seen is a lot of folks change their lives. It was time to sign up for PME. It was time to knock out that CCAF. It was time to knock out a master's degree and say, I love my job, I love my career, and I got to play my A game now. I can't just stay here and say, hey, the minimum is going to keep me around. So we've seen some great improvement there. And, of course, the third toughest challenge is the one that we all remembered, where we all had that snow. So where Yokota normally gets 6 inches of snow in about a year snow season, we ended up with 37 inches of snow in 7 days. And that completely overwhelmed us. And, you know, most snow ever in Japan's recorded history for downtown Tokyo, and we were buried in it. And so every year we brief a snow removal plan. And so we sit down with the CE team and everybody else and say, okay, how would we do this? Well, I'll tell you what, we have got some amazing heroes in CE and LRS that kept all of our broken snow plows, our sweepers, our bucket loaders, everything running. But then we also got to remember that the first responders were still out there, security forces, fire department. Our guys were
digging their way out to the radar approach control to control air traffic over Tokyo and here over the base. We had folks that were digging their way over to the UC in case we had a medical crisis. And you look at that and you think, that's amazing at a base that never gets this much snow. Once again, we took a really difficult challenge and we turned it into an amazing opportunity.
Most definitely. And with those 3 challenges, I think the biggest thing that resonates for me is you were always on the show, and even though the times were hard and times are still hard, you still came on here with a very positive message. It was very uplifting, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people appreciated. It wasn't like you're just blowing smoke, like you're just telling us something to make us feel better. You always had a different perspective and a different way of spinning it, and I think that's something that a lot of people were very appreciative of.
I appreciate it.
So, and you know, we're talking about the negative things. Let's talk about some of your favorite moments at Yokota, some of the highlights for you.
You know, one of the neatest ones that this is the first time I've seen any base ever pull off at any time is really when we got a chance to do the Samurai Surge, and we launched every single aircraft on base. And I've been around a lot of Air Force bases, both deployed overseas and back in the States, and I had never seen that done before. And while on the surface that first sounds like this is just an ops maintenance thing and, hey, great job, guys, high five, go play and do a good job. But when you realize everything that it took the entire base to pull that one moment off where we put every aircraft, and a lot of folks don't know that we had some aircraft in the Philippines, we had some aircraft that were coming back from other missions, and we even made sure that those aircraft were in the air at the same time as well. And we even built a rejoin plan for a C-130 that was coming back so they could rejoin on the end of our formation. And it was unbelievable to see that kind of work, but it was really about the base and everything that went with that one as well. So when you look at that piece, it's amazing, but that was really a foreshadowing for what we would have to do for Operation Damian. Tremendous moment for us to be able to say, we're ready to go. The guys that are coming out of Cope South with a humanitarian assistance disaster relief package, you're just amazed that these guys are ready to go and saying, sir, we're overflying the Philippine Islands. Can we just declare an emergency and land at Clark Air Base and start rolling? I'm like, let's not do that. Let's at least get this working out. And then with the number of folks that were on alert back here, the LRS, the mobility line, and everything that was ready to go, our partners in the AMOG were critical as well, because with their aerial port expertise, they were not only helping us get out of town, but getting ready to forward deploy with us so we could help out those types of things. And it's been pretty amazing to see what we've been able to do. And then the last really highlight for me is what we've been able to do with the JASDAF here on base. We've talked about the engagement priority for so long and what it means to the men and women of Yokota, but I think for a long time we forgot that we live here in Japan and we have to engage with them. So when our airman came up and said, sir, we want to do a language club, can we do that? Absolutely. We want them to be in our professional development seminar. 10% of our class is now JASDAF. You start to look at our involvement with the C-130 capabilities, that we've exchanged ideas with the Japanese C-130s, working on NVGs. We helped them with low-cost, low-altitude delivery. You look at all those great things. What an amazing success story for the men and women of Yokota. Easily the highlight reel for me.
Definitely. And, sir, before we get to, you know, talking about the outlook that you have for Yokota and you know, saying our final farewell and all that, I really, I want to get to some more music. But before I get to some music, I don't want to just throw you any kind of music. I want to hear you were telling us another story about a DJ tossing it to a song, you know, after you had spoke. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
This is a pretty good story, and this is what I love about you guys. So many folks might remember when we went to Real World FBCon Delta. And it all started with, I got a phone call. It was a Saturday morning. I'm on my second cup of coffee. Security Forces commander goes, sir, we've had an explosion outside of the gate. I see an impact area. I recommend FBCon Delta. Okay, we'll do that. Let's lock down the base. Let's get everything going. So we spent all morning going through everything that it took. I did not realize how busy it would get just to change an FBCon status for the base. It was unbelievable. But the last part is I like to connect with the folks here at Yokota. You know, we were putting information out on Facebook and the webpage. We were trying to get the information everybody needed to understand what was going on. But the last was, I got to get back on the radio. I want to get the information out across, and it's okay for people around the base to understand what we're doing too, that, hey, there's nothing, I got better things to do on Saturday than run the base through an FBCon Delta drill. And so we do this kind of, it was very scripted. This was a DJ I had never worked with before. It was a Saturday afternoon. And so we finally finished, you know, my statement and everything else. And the next song that came up was Beautiful Liars. And I was thinking, could we pick a different song? Can you look at the right screen and see what was going to come up next? And could we pick anything else other than that one? So picking songs for DJs is sometimes an important skill set for a commander, and I've learned that along the way.
And you know what? To make sure I don't make that same mistake, you know, I got a little playlist, you know. I don't know if you mind some Coldplay.
I think Coldplay is a pretty good choice
It's
for
not.
this
It's not
one.
a beautiful liar, but it's a sky full of stars.
I think that one works too.
All right, stay tuned. We're gonna have more from the 374th Airlift Wing Commander, Colonel Mark August, on his farewell show.
'Cause you're a sky